The largest clay deposits in Europe gave rise to an industry in the heart of Germany that is now centuries old, namely in the Kannenbäckerland. Since the 15th century, beer steins, vases, cups and other utensils, as well as art objects, have been created here. Most importantly, artistic beer steins. We would like to invite you to witness the creation of the new Ball State Stein Limited Edition. We are guests of the Zoeller and Born Company, a family business now run by the second generation of the founder's children.
Our company was founded in 1956 from my father Alois Zoeller and his partner Werner Born. That makes the company name Zoeller and Born, and we are very proud that we are able to continue the tradition making old traditional German steins. We are manufacturing very different steins. Some are based on our own ideas, others are based on the ideas or wishes from our customers. One of our best customers, Carmel Christkindlmarkt, has already 6 steins we are manufacturing for them. The latest one is the Ball State University Stein. And how we are manufacturing this stein you will see in the video.
These are the motifs that should be on the beer stein. First I take the large template of the motif and reduce it with a copier and try if it fits into the field. Okay, it fits into the field. Then I take this copier and draw the outline of this motif on the clay plate.
Here, the fine lines of the motif are traced with a special tool and thus transferred to the underlying slab of plastic clay.
Yes, it looks good.
The resulting contours serve to build up the relief three-dimensionally. The necessary tools are specially made for each motif in order to always have the right shape, as is the case here for the differently sized windows, columns and steps. Once the reliefs have been modeled, a plaster cast is made of them as a negative. In this way, working templates can be created again and again as needed.
Now I have here the plaster cast of this building and of another building that also goes on this beer stein. Now I can fill in the first building with plastic clay. I press the clay firmly into the contours, so I get a good mold. Then I take a flat steel bar and smooth out the back of the design. With the help of some plastic clay, the motif is then molded out a bit with feeling so I don't tear it. Now it's molded out. I place it on a damp clay slab so that the motif stays moist and therefore soft, and I can place it well on the beer stein. When I have put the motif on, I separate the buildings again, otherwise they would become crooked due to the conical shape of the beer stein. Now I can place them again in the top view in the vertical and press them on again. I now do the same with all the motifs, and then it's time for the finishing touches.
Gradually, all the motifs are applied to the beer stein at the desired location and finally reworked. Dietmar takes special care to design the fine structures in such a way that they are not damaged during subsequent casting and molding.
I started my apprenticeship as a pattern maker in 1973, which was the name of the apprenticeship back then, but in the company they didn't think I could do it. So they trained me as a pattern setter. That was important for me and for my entire later career, to learn this area in ceramics. But actually I wanted to become a modeler. Little by little I trained myself more and more to become a modeler by copying and trying myself, so to speak.
From the finished beer stein, a negative mold is now made from plaster, similar to the motifs. First, the beer stein is centered on the turntable. The marks for cutting the later shape are drawn in. Care is taken to ensure that no casting edges run through the motifs later. A release agent is applied so that the negative is not damaged later during the molding process. The outer mold is also centered. It is then fixed with plastic clay so that it does not slip during pouring.
So, now we can turn on the plaster.
For this purpose, we use a special mold plaster. It is mixed in a certain ratio and carefully stirred to create a uniform creaminess. The thin plaster mass is now carefully filled into the mold.
I pour the plaster a few millimeters over the edge.
By turning it back and forth, the plaster reaches even the finest contours, and any trapped air bubbles rise so that the motifs do not show any inclusions later. After 20 minutes, the plaster has set and can be removed from the mold. The protruding plaster edge is turned off to the height of the beer stein.
Still a little smoothing. Now it can harden.
Now the cutting lines just defined are transferred to the mold. The mold is sawed in 3 places and then blasted for an optimal fit. 3 parts are sufficient to ensure that the motifs are not damaged when the final beer steins are molded.
Now we have separated them and then detach the mold from the model.
The original model made from the soft plastic clay is now destroyed. But instead we now have a cast. We call it the mother mold, from which we can always recreate the original model. In this case, it is made from a plastic that is more wear resistant than the original clay model.
After we have made the model molds, the fine details are checked again. The model mold is placed in the drying chamber and remains there for 2 to 3 days, so that the plaster is almost 100% dry. It is then sealed and waxed, so that the plastic, from which we make the actual working model, can come off more easily. From the mother mold, we ultimately made this plastic model. Since production molds wear out quickly, this gives us a plastic model that we can use to make new production molds over and over again.
The production molds are made from the plastic model. One production mold allows the production of about 40 beer steins until it wears out and has been replaced by a new one. When the production mold is made, a matching cap is cast at the same time, which is needed in the subsequent production process. After drying, the same processes take place as in the production of the master mold.
Carefully push it together, then I can put the cap over it and see if everything fits. There we have it. Now we have made the production mold. It's going to be put in the dryer so that it can dry 100%, and then we can produce the beer steins.
In production, the mold is now filled with liquid clay. In the process, the plaster mold extracts the moisture from the clay, and the clay thus dries from the outside in. In the meantime, we are already demolding the handles that we had previously cast. As we can see, a skin has formed in the meantime, and the wall thickness is sufficient to pour out the excess clay. The resulting cavity forms the later drinking vessel. The beer stein is now carefully unmolded, as it is still relatively soft, which facilitates the subsequent steps. When it is leather hard, the seams on the beer stein and handles are trimmed and roughened at the later joints. On the lathe, the base and drinking rim are turned again so that they are evenly round. The bottom is whipped with a damp sponge. This creates a soft edge. Finally, the protective rim is turned off. Now the beer stein can be stamped. The initials show who has trimmed the beer stein and attached the handles. The drinking rim is now rounded on the turntable, and the watered sponge again provides a soft edge so that it is later pleasant to drink from the beer stein. Now the handles can be attached. These were watered in advance so that they bond better with the beer stein. The handles are pressed on and the excess clay is removed. The beer stein is once again whipped throughout with a damp sponge so that no unpleasant edges remain. The next step in the process follows. In the bluing room, named after the color cobalt blue, which used to be applied to the steins. Now the so-called whipping black is applied. Afterwards, the black color is whipped off again with a rag and thus remains only in the edges and depressions. After firing, this creates a beautiful plasticity in the relief and provides a perfect basis for later painting by hand. In the next step, the lower and upper rims as well as the handle are sprayed with a black glaze on the turntable. After a short drying period, a glaze is applied to these areas and additionally to the front of the emblem. This will later make our matte beer stein shiny and smooth in these places. The beer stein is fired for the first time at 1130 degrees. So that the still moist material does not crack, the kiln must be heated very slowly and then slowly cool down again. The entire process takes about 3 days. After firing, we see the basic color of the beer stein. First, in the painting studio, the Ball State Cardinals logo is applied. After the certificate of authenticity is applied to the bottom, the serial number of the limited edition is now painted on by hand. The actual painting follows. The colors are applied in the order required by the motif. With a lot of experience and love, the motifs are painted. This requires the utmost concentration because the lady is not only an artist, but also her own quality assurance. Already when mixing the colors and applying them to the brush, a color gradient is created, which is now transferred to the beer stein. This results in beautiful shading on the surfaces. Again and again, Manuela checks her work against her template so that each copy is equally beautiful. The beer stein is fired one last time at 540 degrees to burn in the colors and decorations. After firing, you can see the vibrant colors and shades as well as the beautiful shine of the paint. What would be the most beautiful beer stein without the matching lid? This is traditionally cast on around the handle. For this purpose, both parts are clamped in a specially made mold. The tin, heated to about 350 degrees and freed from the slag, is now poured into the mold. A chisel is used to check whether the tin has already cooled. Once the pewter is hard, The Stein is unmolded and checked to see if the casting was successful. The sprue is pinched off with the pince nets and the burr is roughly removed with the file. On the machine, the sprue is milled smooth and then polished clean. It has passed through many hands. A lot of craftsmanship, creativity and attention to detail have created our new limited edition beer Stein, the exclusive Ball State beer Stein.
I have been a modeler for over 40 years now. This is now my last beer Stein, probably my 500th that I have modeled.
Enjoy your Stein. Cheers!
Get your beer Stein at the Carmel Christkindlmarkt.